welcome back to Shock's Talks. I'm Shakti, and today we're going to talk about the Varginha alien. Now, I've already covered this story on the UFO season that I did, UFO History Deep Dive, and I'll link that for you in the description box below. But right now, I'm going to be sharing my notes from a re-release of James Fox's documentary on the Varginha incident. He first released this documentary in 2022 and just re-released it with new footage in 2026, and it's better than ever. It's an incredible story, very important, and one of the most complete pictures of what a crash retrieval looks like from multiple different angles. You have witnesses who are regular civilians. You have doctors who worked on the aliens' bodies. You have military personnel in Brazil who were basically just managing the situation on the ground as it was happening. And then you have the Americans swooping in. Nobody really knows who or how, but basically scooping up that evidence and bringing it back to America. Now, if you have $5 to spend, I highly recommend you rent this movie on Amazon. You can also purchase it there. And it's really worth it. This is 100 times better, in my opinion, than the recent Age of Disclosure documentary, which is still important, has its place, but this is really getting into the deeper layers of this history. And as we study anomalous phenomena, it's very easy to feel like this could all just be consciousness phenomena. And maybe in a really zoomed out sense, if you think of all of reality as consciousness phenomena, then yes, it is. But if you look at things the way I do, through the lens of Tom Campbell's theory of everything, you can start to distinguish between various layers of reality and therefore understand what's happening in each layer. So, for example, we humans, we are primarily focused as consciousness in this subset of the larger reality. Our reality is physical matter reality, and that's our whole universe. And there are laws within this data set, within this game that we're all logged onto as consciousness. And in physical matter reality, we have each other. We have other consciousness beings, but we're in physical form. We can hug each other. We can shake hands. We can look each other in the eye and have a conversation. We have creatures. We have the planet, and we have everything that we make here that's physical, that all of these things live within this subset of reality. Now, outside of that, we have dream realms and astral realms and other consciousness realms that can be visited with our consciousness using techniques like meditation and the out-of-body experience. And this is a huge focus of Shock's Talks. I'm very interested in that side of anomalous phenomena because it's exciting and it's something that we can practice and try ourselves. And I am constantly working on my own skills so that I can go deeper into these other realms. So for me, I like to practice remote viewing. I use social-rv.com. I've tried another site, it's called arvcollective.com, and it's pretty good. I'm logged into that now too, but I prefer Social RV. That's my favorite. And they just recently started doing some different paid tiers. So if you want to get in on it now, you can do unlimited sessions, you can do esoteric targets. It's a really reasonable price. Anyway, that's just a side note. I met the creator of this site and I really liked him and his partner and their energy and their attitudes, and I just got a good vibe about it. So that's why I'm pretty into this, and I just like the user interface. It's a lot friendlier for me than the ARV Collective. But by doing this remote viewing practice, I'm tapping into my Psi abilities. I'm sharpening my skill set when it comes to changing data streams, accessing information at a distance, building confidence in my ability to do things that are out of the norm, that maybe even go beyond the physical matter reality rule set. And yesterday I had a really cool experience with a mini out of body. It was just a flash of an out of body. But basically, I laid down in the middle of the day with my blindfold, which I purchased for practicing mind sight or vision without eyes. And it's a complete blackout blindfold. And part of the technique of training yourself to begin to see with your mind's eye is to work with this blindfold and eventually open up a little window of perception that allows you to see what's in front of you. Nobody knows exactly how this works yet, but lots of scientists are studying it. And it almost doesn't matter if you're the one having the experience and it's verifiable and it's happening over and over again. You can see through the blindfold. You can hold cards in front of the blindfold and tell someone what they are. That means something. And we may or may not get to fully understand how it's happening, but it's very important that we cultivate the skills and continue to push ourselves as humankind to move in that direction of expanding beyond our limited, typical 5 sensory perception. So I'm laying in my bed with the blindfold on, and I'm telling myself out loud, I can see without eyes. I experience vision without eyes now. I experience mind sight now. Because saying these affirmations out loud is a good way for my own body and my own subconscious to hear the command and understand, okay, I can do that. I can do that. And I was doing the same thing with out of body. I was saying out loud, I can have an out of body experience now. And then I started to fully relax. And what happened first is like my body just started slowing way down really quickly too. I'm getting really good at the relaxation phase. And I could feel my heart rate slowing. I could feel everything shutting down and just getting extremely still, like a sack of potatoes, just this heavy, empty, very, very quiet feeling. And as that's happening and it feels amazing and my body is super relaxed, I start to feel my energy balloon out of my body. It was very tangible. I could feel this huge expansion. These kind of sensational experiences that happen at the very beginning of an out of body are really cool, actually. They're really fun. Different people describe like vibrations and different things, and I've had a couple different versions of it, but I really like the feeling of this balloon sensation. And I didn't make it happen, it was just happening. And it's like my energy is like breaking free of the bounds of my physical body, and it's just expanding, and I feel very floaty and nice and like fluffy and big, like a big ball of warm energy. It was really, really cool. And then I'm kind of just drifting in consciousness. I'm no longer aware of my sense data of my body. I'm not really paying attention to the room around me. My eyes are closed and I'm in a blindfold. And I'm starting to have that feeling of like I'm in between waking and sleeping. And this is often where I will drift into sleep, but I didn't drift into sleep just yet. I saw the living room couch, and it was as if I was hovering above the couch at a kind of lopsided, funny angle that my physical body would never be at, but I could very clearly see the pattern on the blanket that's on my other couch here. And as soon as I saw it, I realized what was happening, and I gasped from excitement. I went, and as soon as I did that, I was back in my body. So that was really cool. And I would say that's progress. And this year for 2026, I'm going to be writing down in my anomalous journal every little thing that happens like that. Because just like writing down dreams can increase your dream recall, I believe that writing down synchronicities, interesting precognitions, interesting dreams, interesting little moments throughout the day, things that you saw or felt that feel related to the anomalous, this is a way to bring more of that into our experiences. So I'll definitely keep you guys posted in terms of like how I'm progressing. I'm really eager to be able to have this controlled out of body, sober, meditative experience on repeat. I want to be able to do it at will whenever I want. That's the ultimate goal. So I'm still taking baby steps towards that goal, but it's feeling really good every time I make a little bit of progress. So let's get into the Varginha alien, because that's the topic of today. And this season is called The Truth is Stranger Than Fiction. And I'm going back and forth between real history and stories about anomalous things like aliens and consciousness phenomena. But I'm also looking at the art and the literature that is fictional that helps us to consider these topics. So in the last episode, we talked about a sci-fi book that I just finished called Dawn by Octavia Butler. And that deals with characters who get basically abducted by aliens who are trying to save them. And it's a really great way to consider what it would feel like to be in that situation. And a lot of what she describes in the book is very similar to what real life experiencers have reported. So I highly recommend just like taking breaks from your study to do things that are fun and absorb content that is enriching in other ways, because it keeps us very agile. It keeps our minds and our energies open, and we have to stoke the fire of our imagination if we want to continue to move beyond normie reality into these other realms. It's just par for the course. Trust me on this one. So we're going back and forth a little bit this season. One of the books that I'll be talking about soon is all about the consciousness side of the phenomena. And it's a book by Dan Brown, actually, the guy that wrote the Da Vinci Code a long time ago. Not that long ago, but maybe like 20 years ago. I don't know. I'll have to look up when that came out. But anyway, it was just a vacation read. I thought it would be fun. Somebody recommended it because they knew that it covered topics that I'm interested in. And it was actually really, really good. And I'm almost done with it. So I'll be talking about that probably on the next Shocks Talks. But today we're going into a real life story of actual aliens. The reason this particular story is so important is because, like I said earlier in this episode, this is evidence of physical beings existing in our physical matter reality universe right here with us, just like any other person or animal, visiting our planet through some kind of anomalous craft from who knows where, we don't know, crashing, landing, getting injured, escaping their crash, running through this town in Brazil, being spotted by multiple witnesses, and 2 different actual living aliens were captured during this incident. Now, I know this sounds hard to believe, or maybe you're already here with me and you're just like, oh yeah, I know about this story. So we'll just cozy up and review our facts because it's just fun to kind of go over this stuff again. But for those of you who are new to this, you got to go watch this documentary by James Fox, because you will see with your own eyes the truth in these witness testimonies and the energy and the emotion in these people who had this experience 26 or 29 years ago. So let's get into the details. First of all, at the beginning of the documentary, they kind of set the stage by recapping a lot of the recent events that have happened in the Congress, which I've covered all of that on Shocks Talks too. But we're talking about the congressional hearings in the U.S. with witnesses like David Grush, George Knapp, Dylan Borland, Lou Elizondo. There's a lot of footage at the beginning of the documentary where you get to hear these guys talking, and they're basically reminding us all, regrounding us in the truth that there is a legacy program of UFO crash retrieval and reverse engineering that has been covered up for 80 years, and it's been going on right under the surface of reality all this time. All these different people know about it, and more people are coming forward and sharing about it, sharing pieces of evidence, video footage, documents that they've seen. And so they start us off there just to remind the audience, this is real. There's a physical, real side to this. This isn't people having weird dreams or ayahuasca trips or anything else like that. This is happening sober in broad daylight. And, you know, if you go back to season 1 of Shocks Talks, you'll see there's just a vast history and a huge pile of good evidence that is very supportive of this extraterrestrial hypothesis that actual aliens from another planet maybe, or another place away from our planet. So that's how we start. We show some of the footage of some of the interesting anomalous craft that have been released to the public. And you have astrophysicist Eric Davis talking about his work for the last 30 years studying the legacy crash retrieval program and non-human bodies. This part, this was even new to me over the last couple of years, hearing more and more credible people talking about the bodies. I was always skeptical, wondering, is it real? Are the rumors real? I've heard these little whispers on the internet, but are there actual bodies? There are bodies. there are multiple bodies of different kinds of species, and it is undeniable at this point. So Eric Davis is talking here about some of what he's seen. He called it very hard, very physical, very real. He said this reality is very hard, very physical, and very real. Real reality, nothing ephemeral about it. And this type of evidence, he says you can't come by it in the public literature. It's classified. But it's a crash retrieval, it's real, and there are real bodies. I saw the evidence and it's stark. There's a few dozen total retrievals starting from the 1930s and 40s. And, there was this famous one, Magenta, Italy. It was a UFO that was then acquired by the Americans. So the Americans are all over the globe getting their hands into this business. They're just on top of it. So they went and they were able to get that from Mussolini. And there was Roswell, and there was Kingman, Arizona. And these are all major crash stories that I've covered on Shocks Talks, but there was another one that I haven't heard of from Kecksburg, Pennsylvania, that was in 1965. So we're talking about Magenta was in the 30s, Roswell was in the 40s, Kingman, Arizona was in the 50s, Kecksburg, Pennsylvania was in the 60s, and then you have the Ralph Bentwater, the Britain's Roswell, basically happening in the 80s. These are all major crash reported events. Incidents. Sorry, I get so excited I don't even know the word I want. But then you have Varginha in 1996. So we just kind of went through the decades from the 30s to the 90s, and here we are. This is Varginha, Brazil, and you see John Mack interviewing one of the girls who was young. You see some footage of that, which is cool. He was, a lot of the times he was on the scene interviewing these witnesses. He interviewed the children from the mass sighting that happened in Rua, Zimbabwe, the aerial school. And you see him talking to these young Brazilian girls at the beginning of this documentary. And you get the feel for the town, kind of like a Roswell type of situation where there's like a big UFO statue, or there's like a big UFO shaped museum, and there's alien statues, and it's a little kitschy. And, that's one way to kind of like make light of things and kind of makes it feel less serious. But the more you start hearing from all these witnesses and townspeople, the more it's just like, this thing really happened. And a lot of us were told to keep quiet about it, and it was just kind of swept under the rug very quickly, which is often the case. James Fox goes to meet with the mayor of Varginha, and he kind of gets the mayor's blessing. The mayor's like, yeah, this definitely happened. And one of the girls who was a witness was his nephew's girlfriend. So he said, based on everything I know, this seems very real. You hear from these farmers. There's always some farmers out there who see these things. So if you're a farmer out there, keep your eyes to the skies, because you guys are first in line for UFO sightings and crop circles. But basically, we hear from these farmers, and they saw the thing go down. 2 different farmers in 2 different locations saw the same UFO kind of zigzagging down and crashing. They didn't see exactly where it landed, but they could both watch it as it was coming down. And they saw like some white smoke coming off of it. And they both described it as like kind of cigar shaped and the size of a school bus. And then you have this guy talking about as it was crashing, there was like a chunk of it missing. So it was obviously it had been damaged somehow. And then there's this guy who is just flying his own ultralight airplanes with his buddies, and he happens to see it and track it. And so he goes and finds where it crashes. And he's like an old man now, but James Fox brings him back to the crash site, and they drive to the location, and they finally find where it was. and he's showing them exactly what happened, how it came down, how it scattered across the land, and there was debris everywhere. And the smell, this is the case where everybody talks about this really intense smell that was different than anything they know, but similar to like ammonia and sulfur. It had a very pungent, very disturbing smell that was strong, and everyone got that smell in their sinuses and couldn't get it out for multiple days afterwards. They were cleaning themselves and cleaning everything, and they couldn't get rid of the smell. So that was like a very interesting detail, and you hear this from all kinds of different witnesses. And this man who was flying the planes, who went to the crash site, found a piece of foil, picked it up. It was crumply, like a thin tin foil, and he folded it, and then it popped back out into its perfect smooth shape. So that's a very interesting anomalous material. Then the military came and they got rid of him, got everything out of there. Go away, we're going to shoot you if you don't leave right now, and like let go of that. And you never saw anything and never say anything about this, the classic way. So the military is on the scene super quick after this happens. The aliens have escaped the crashed craft, and there's another alien ship that comes down to kind of do a search and rescue, which other multiple witnesses see in the neighborhoods coming down low, looking for their people who had to escape from their craft because there were, I guess, too many people near the crash site. The military descended super quick. And so you have these two aliens running away, and basically they were both captured. There was a morning capture and an evening capture. But during this whole time, the military has set up all these blockades. People can't get through the town. People are suspicious. They know what they saw. A lot of people saw this thing crash. They're already being told, like, get away from here. Nothing happened. You didn't see anything. Don't ask any questions. Like, we will shoot you if you cross this blockade. Just very violent, very quick response. And you basically have these two policemen driving around looking for one of the aliens. One of the aliens was crouching near this cinder block wall, and the documentary filmmaker takes you to this location with the three women who witnessed it when they were young. And so you're kind of flashing back between footage of them when they were young, footage of them today, the actual location, renderings of what happened. The alien being was crouched near a wall, and the little girls were just taking a shortcut through this field, and they saw it about 8 feet away from them. It was alive. They made eye contact. It freaked them out so much that they ran away, but they all got a good look at it. So they described the being, and others, I'm just going to combine all the witness testimony and tell you what everybody was looking at here. It's like a small-bodied being about the size of a 7-year-old kid. It had some kind of cloven foot in a way that either had 3 toes or maybe 2, depending on how different people described it, but something like this for the feet. And the feet were big and very noticeable. Everybody talked about the feet. And it had brown skin, thin arms, kind of a small head, big eyes, about 3 or 4 times as big as a human eyeball, teardrop shaped and red. Chris Bledsoe saw some red-eyed beings, I believe. Anyway, these beings had some little nubs on their head that almost looked like horns, and they had very oily skin. We don't know what was going on. Maybe they were having a reaction to being out of their craft. Maybe it was some kind of sweat, some kind of fear chemical coming off of them, but they were slick and oily looking, and they had that sulfurous ammonia smell to them. A little slit for a mouth, barely any mouth at all. And, you could tell that they were alive, and you could tell that they were scared. They were just as scared as the people who saw them. That's what the girls said. And so this was all happening. The girls' sighting happened at 3:30 in the afternoon, broad daylight. They ran home. Their mother had an intuition that something was wrong. She ran out of the house, asked them what was going on. They told her. They brought her back to look at the site. The alien was gone by then, but they saw its footprints. And the mother draws what she saw as the footprint, which was 3 toes. And And so that was that. And they get interviewed and, then they go about their lives. They live their lives. People make fun of them. They never got anything from this. Nothing good came of it for them, And some other interesting details. So the other really important part about this is the man who caught the alien. So one of the aliens, and it might have been the same one that the girls saw, basically runs across the path of this police car who's searching for it. And there are two men in this car. One of them is, let me find his name, Marco Ceresi. And the other one is, he's Lopez is his last name, but he basically went MIA. He never wanted to talk. So the one driving the car was a little bit like higher ranking than the one who actually goes out, Eric Lopez. Okay. So Ceresi is the one that goes out and kidnaps the alien. He basically just scoops it up in his arms and they bring it to the hospital. And the man who scooped it up ends up dying of a crazy infection. That's like a big part of this story. That's very sad. It looked like the alien might have scratched him and then some kind of unknown bacteria got into his bloodstream. And within a week, he was dead. And the doctor, they get witness testimony from the doctor who worked on him. And he's like, I've done over 50,000 autopsies in my life. I have never seen anything like that. This was the guy that looked at the body. And so anyway, they're talking to doctors. They're talking to the radiologist. They're talking to all these different people. One of the aliens that was picked up was brought to the hospital, but all these military cars block everything off. Nobody comes, nobody goes. They put him on the radiologist's table and they want x-rays done. And they tell him, we need to get an x-ray of his cranium, his cervical spine, his thorax, his abdomen, pelvis, legs, and arms. And they just observed the doctor the whole time. They never said a word. The doctor took all of the images and was not allowed to look at them or verify them. They took everything away and they said, your job is done. Don't say a word. And the smell lingered and they had to close that wing of the hospital and try to wait out the smell because they cleaned and cleaned and cleaned and it would never go away. The mother of the girls, when she went back to the site where the alien was, she got the smell in her nose too. And she said she tried to rinse it with alcohol and water because after a few days it still wasn't coming out. So again, very weird detail. So there was a military guy who talked about seeing the alien body. He said, he knew it wasn't human. Basically, so it's all these different people talking about what they saw. And the more you hear from them all, the more real it sounds. It's just like these people aren't lying. It's been a really long time. They're still telling the same story. Nothing magical is happening to them. They're not making any money off of this. It's been 26 years, And then the most important part, I think, is at the very, very end. And this is where you hear from the actual doctor who worked on the live alien. And he's someone who never wanted to come forward before because he didn't want to ruin his reputation. People don't want to be stigmatized. But he had a heart attack recently, and that's why he finally decided to show his face and talk about this. And so he takes you to the room where the alien was. He shows you it was laying right here on this bed. It was alive. He looked into the eyes of the creature. He felt like he had a telepathic message that the creature had received care and he was fine. And he appeared tranquil, and he talks about exactly how he looked and his size and everything. And he talks about how he sensed an intelligence a lot higher than his. And he felt like when they asked him, how do you feel about sharing this information after 29 years? And he said, I feel like crying. And then he just started crying, and James Fox was crying, and it's super emotional. And he said, I really felt like this being was so good and had no negative intentions whatsoever. He said it was like an angel. And he saw zero malice, zero negative intentions. And I was crying when I was watching this because it's just so emotional. So again, this is just one of those stories where it kind of, for me, it does away with any question that I have left or any doubt in my mind about whether or not real beings are visiting this planet. After reading all of this literature for all these years and doing all this studying and research, I feel like there's no question. There's absolutely physical, real aliens, multiple different species visiting this planet. And it breaks my heart to think that they might just be really good, loving, intelligent beings who are being mistreated and maybe kidnapped and killed and studied and put on ice or God knows what. They're definitely not being returned to their home. I don't think that's what's going on with these military people when they put them in these metal boxes and load them into these trucks and vans and whatever else and transport them back to the U.S. It just doesn't feel like anything kind is happening here. So this is another reason why it matters that we collectively start to accept the reality of what's going on and get a hold of these powers that be that are totally out of control, operating without any oversight and without us being able to be involved. Like humanity, this is an issue that belongs to all of us. This is not something that belongs to intelligence agencies or these secret programs. It shouldn't belong to people whose main interest is money making and war. This information should not be kept secret, and it's very important that we take seriously the credible witnesses and the credible witness accounts that are available to us. And as the pattern goes, a lot of these people don't feel safe talking about what they've been through until they're close to death, because they reach a certain point in their life where they realize, all right, do what you want now. Even if you take me out, it's okay. I did what I had to do. I lived my life. I learned my lessons, and I shared the information that I needed to share before it was over. So, recommend going and watching the documentary. That's all I'm going to say about it today, and we'll get back together next weekend for our anomalous study group, where we will be looking deeper into the psi phenomena of astral travel or out-of-body experience and consciousness. Thank you so much for being here with me, and keep on learning, reading, and I'll see you next time on Shock's Talks.